Hi, and welcome to a Mailbag episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. I'm Adam, and with me are James and Brad, and we are going to sit down and answer 20 questions that you, the listeners, have sent in. We do have, transparency, we do have the Patreon questions first. The patrons are guaranteed to have their questions answered first, so if you would like to make sure that your questions are answered, you can check the show notes to see the link to our Patreon, or you can just try to be faster than everybody else to get your questions in. So, anyway, how we're going to do this is we're going to roll initiative here at the beginning to see who's going to ask questions in which order, but we're all going to pipe in with our answers for it. It should be fucking ridiculous. They always are. I'm not sure how many of these are Dungeons & Dragons related at this point. A lot of them are, I think some of them are definitely. But I'm expecting some nonsense.
I'm coming into this intentionally cold.
All right. So let's grab dice and see.
All right.
Into the dice tower.
Into the mimic.
Well,
wow.
James going first with a 9.
You're going second with a 4 because I got a 2.
I was at a 2, but you bumped me. Okay, so James, you want to take us away with question number 1?
Okay, from Makuza DM. Well, since this has come up at my table, how superstitious are you about math rocks? Example, can no one touch your dice lest they give them bad juju? Do you give them out willy-nilly, maybe forgetting to bring them or use a pool of your DM provides? Do you never mix 2 sets of dice after one die has failed? Are you okay with digital dice or even in a physical game?
He does say because random is random, and I'm like, there's no such fucking thing as random, especially in a computer program.
A computer program.
I would doubt dice more than I would doubt a computer program. Yeah. Though computer programs aren't random,
they aren't random.
Dice are made worse when that program is programmed.
I'd agree with that.
It depends on the dice. I figure if you get some of them, especially the metal ones, they're probably machine graded.
Yeah.
But the ones that are poured by hand off of an Etsy store, they're lopsided.
Most chess decks and most metal I have been terribly balanced.
Really?
Absolutely terrible.
About 3 or 4 years ago now, I did the salt and water test.
I've done the salt and water test.
And most of them were okay. I got pretty decent rolls on them, or consistency on them. But as far as superstition goes, James, you answer first. You get to throw someone under a bus.
Brad, what do you think?
All right. I am so far from superstitious about my dice. That said, if I've got a die, I will have multiple sets of dice in front of me at all times. I am the guy who's got like 6 different colors of dice.
Yeah.
And I tend to build my dice more around the color based on the character.
Yeah.
And then if one die is really performing poorly, I might just grab a different one out of I'm not feeling it. But as far as superstition goes, it'll come out the next session even if it was bad the day before.
Honestly, for me, I do the same thing. I choose my dice based on, I choose how evil I want to be. And the literal darker the dice are, if I've got like black and gray speckled evil, like I will pick, if they look like evil dice, and I'm trying to murder someone tonight, I'll use those. Then I've got the ones that look like cotton candy, and that's like, we're going to the Feywild, it's going to be nonsense role-playing this session. So it's that. And so that's how I do it. But when it comes to like, it's rolling poorly, if I roll in front of my players.
Yeah, me
so,
too.
But as soon as they have seen the roll, I scoop up the dice and toss them behind the DM screen. So whichever ones are closest, it makes no difference. I rolled so many times in the span of a night.
Yeah.
So DMing, I don't care. I'd probably care more if I was a player. You have more downtime to sit there and like judge your dice.
Yeah, as a player, you definitely would have more. I find when I'm playing, I'm more picky about my dice because I'm sitting there waiting for an hour for everybody else's turns.
Yeah, I'm quite superstitious about my dice. That's why I have 8 sets on me at least at all times. It gets 2 bad rolls, and then it's relegated to the bottom of the list.
Yeah. Do you have the dice jail?
No, it's not. It doesn't need to go to the dice jail. It hasn't misperformed yet. It's just having a bad day. But if it has multiple sessions in a row, I've thrown dice away.
See that little cave thing at on the shelf there? If you pick it up, James, there's a button on it. That is the dice jail that I got for Christmas. There's a button somewhere. Yeah, there you go. It actually glows. It looks
That
cool.
is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an actual like D&D sponsored freaking.
I know some people who would really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Myself, I don't bother.
Well, honestly, I pulled it out as a gimmick and a gag to smile, but I'm actually eager to use that as a set piece in the like.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So Anyway, next one, Makusa_DM. Again, we only have so many questions from like there's so many patrons asking. So, asked, what's the coolest thing your character's ever gotten to do in a game? James.
Oh, a group of clerics, we made a joke campaign. It was supposed to be a one-off. We called the Amen off the joke we've all seen online.
Yeah.
Well, it turned into a full campaign, and our DM decided to be an antagonistic DM. So we were fighting Warhammer 40k orcs.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so we decided as a group to mount cannons to carriages and make our own tanks.
Perfect.
We spent about 3 sessions doing the math on what our tanks could achieve. It was disgusting what we were able to get out of them.
There are two kinds of players.
Yeah, there really are.
That is absolutely the kind of shit that I would have done in my early days. Like, God, 20 years ago in D&D, I totally would have set that.
You also need the DM who will go along with that, but it's cool. It's cool when it works. It's cool when it works.
And we just retaliated. And we retaliated worse and worse and worse.
That's great. When everybody's on board.
We went through the final battle. We opened the ground, killing about 10,000.
Oh, excellent.
Mid-level creatures all at once.
Yep.
The battle ended, meaning we get our EXP. So we went from level 16 to level 20. We used our wish to get back all our spells and abilities to fight the final boss. Like, if you're gonna mess with us, we're all experienced players. We will break your game.
Yeah.
Excellent.
What's a...
coolest thing I did was actually probably in a one-shot. It was doing one with Dan. He just wanted to run a one-shot. Actually, it was for your campaign builder. He wanted to test some stuff that he built for the campaign builder episodes. So I built a wild magic sorcerer, because... That's the time to play it as in a one-shot.
Sure, absolutely.
Anyways, I was trying to traverse. We were basically in this anti-gravity chamber, a bunch of stuff swirling around the center, and I had to try and get to a platform in the center room. So I basically created my own grappling hook from tools I had and threw it.
I remember him talking about this. Yeah.
So I had to roll with disadvantage, and I rolled 2 nat 20s. The one in a 400 chance with disadvantage, I managed to get crit. That was probably the coolest moment I've ever had as a player.
I don't know what cool... I think the coolest thing I ever did was Terry was DMing Curse of Strahd, and he allowed me to create water in someone's lungs. Lungs were an open container. He allowed me to do that, and so I drowned a man in his own store.
Yeah, it's an open container.
But I immediately then was playing a lawful good cleric and went, oh God, oh no, and then healed him back up. So I just fucking traumatized him.
Yeah, that's almost worse.
Yeah.
That's called waterboarding. The American military are proficient at it.
Maybe that's why Terry let me do it, because he was in the military.
You didn't want to mention the time where you TPK'd half of a party as a player? Was that not the coolest thing you ever did?
That was pretty cool, but honestly, that was really up to... I had those shenanigans planned out way in advance, and then Dan just let it happen.
Yeah.
I really felt that, honestly... The dominoes were set up, and all I had to do was just say, all right, on my turn I do this. On my next turn I do this. On my next turn I do this. And then I just went through it. It was pretty cool, though, watching the horror on everyone's face. I specifically remember Nick being mad as fuck.
It's so mad.
Not the Nick that was on the podcast.
No, different Nick.
But he was so fucking mad at me.
Yeah.
And he didn't even have a character die, I don't think.
No, he survived. He's one of the few who got away.
Yeah, Tyler was clapping. He was laughing.
I was too. Tyler and I were the two who were probably most brutally killed, and we had the best time with it.
Yeah, so... It all depends on the player, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's pull up question number 3 here. So, from a new question asker, we have from Orion. Basic skill check question. Should I roll an intelligence or wisdom check? I studied U.S. constitutional law in law school. I'm a brown American and have been arrested several times. I don't trust police, and I revel in my skill to be able to spot and evade undercover police cars, stalking traffic looking for violators. So are my skill checks based on intelligence, emotional and background, or my wisdom, learned, experience, natural perceptiveness?
Wisdom, hands
I was going to say,
down.
I'm going to throw this to you, James, because I know that you're going to have some thoughts on this.
As someone who is a colored person, it is your wisdom. It's not your intelligence that pulls out the cops. Yes, your intelligence is vastly useful in pulling
It's your situational awareness.
But it's your situational awareness. Knowing that car's not driving like the crowd.
Yeah.
Or that person at the rave you're at isn't acting like a raver. There's probably an
that guy did up his
cop.
top button, the motherfucker. Right?
The number of times I've been asked for drugs by undercover cops at Calgary festivals, same guy every time. Piercing blue eyes, 6'2", brown guy. Like, you're the most obvious undercover I've ever experienced, sir.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. It's got to be perception.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, what you're really talking about here is a perception check. Now, the ability to know what to do and how to treat the situation,
how to
I would
respond.
argue that's your intelligence, right? How you respond. That will be your intelligence. But your first perception and understanding of the situation and recognizing that it could be trouble, I'm going to put that on perception.
I'm going to take a moment and... Because the question was, is it intelligence because of education and background? And I don't think education plays as big a role.
No, because I'm not Harvard educated or wherever it was, and
you just pretend to be.
I just pretend to be. That's all that matters.
That's just what it
That's charisma.
Yeah. But when it comes to background, I think that's wisdom still. It's not intelligence. Intelligence is memory.
Yeah.
But everybody who has any sort of experience doing anything will learn from it. And when do you apply it?
I think in this scenario, background means background knowledge. The knowledge that every little brown kid or every little black kid gets from their parents.
Sure.
That don't trust the police necessarily. Yes, they're safe for you, but be cautious. Be cautious around those you're with.
This is how to act.
Yeah, it's not background as in, I'm from Timbuktu. It's
it's not your noble background.
People from my background have to have learned. So back to intelligence in education, but different side to education.
I just think that intelligence is memory and
what you've read, not necessarily lived experience, right? But maybe something you've studied.
I would say that and argue with me on this. I haven't thought this all the way through, but book smarts is intelligence, but street smarts is wisdom.
Yeah, no, that's always been my take on it.
That's kind of where I'm coming from on this.
Applied street smarts is wisdom.
Sure. Is that
so? Like if you're a gangbanger as an example, you doing gang life.
I do gangbang.
That is wisdom. Yeah. But
that's a different kind of gangbang.
Taught by your older brother how to handle yourself in the gang situation. Still street smarts.
Yeah.
But you're not self-learned. That is an intelligence.
Sure.
That's you're being trained and taught how to do this. Those the same act.
I would say that knowing how to respond to a circumstance, and because you've learned it, you've studied it, you've prepared for it, that is your intelligence. But whatever your experience in the moment is, right, your gut reaction, your instinct, that's wisdom.
Being able to respond to it is the wisdom.
Because I would say it's an insight check. Yeah. So that's wisdom.
That's wisdom as well.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. That's a good fucking question. Yeah. James, you want to take us on the next one?
Another one from Orion. What do you think is the Venn diagram of people who follow Critical Role closely, people who actually play D&D? I'm not convinced that there's actually much overlap, but I could very well be wrong.
All right, Adam. Honestly, everybody that I've ever met that was a Critical Role fan has played Dungeons and Dragons. However, a lot of people that want to play D&D and can't have that as they can't put it together for whatever reason, will find podcasts and other things to keep that going. But it comes from a background of D&D. Like, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of Critical Role fans that have never picked up dice, right? So they're at least experienced to some degree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Or at some way they're at least involved in the culture around D&D.
Yeah.
So even if they've never played it before, they at least have had an interest in it before they got into Critical Role.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many people who Critical Role got them into D&D, but I think there are many people who were into the idea of D&D, found Critical Role, and then that was enough to push them to the point where they wanted to start playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, I agree. I feel like, if anything, others came from different tabletop games.
Yeah. Whether
they be like a Warhammer War type game or...
even just regular old board games.
Even board games or Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Especially Magic with their interconnection.
I would say that it's Stranger Things and Community and these other ones that have shown us Dungeons and Dragons in other ways that's got people going, oh, okay, I'm aware of it now. And then they got a friend that says, you should check out Critical Role. They'll watch one episode or listen to one episode and go, I want to try this, then go out and buy dice now they're playing.
Or they'll be like, oh, this is actually what D&D is? Never mind, it's not for me.
Yeah, sure. And you know what? They're wrong, but I mean, let them be wrong, so...
We don't want them at the table anyways. Let's gatekeep this game.
Hell yeah. Gatekeep, girl boss, something else we're supposed to do, I can't remember. Gaslight, that's it.
Jesus, James.
The 3 Gs.
I like that you couldn't remember Gaslight. That's funny on a meta level. Superfluous Dearth asks, he says, ooh, if you had to be one type of creature type, what would you choose and why? Please don't say humanoid. Brad, what do you got?
Anybody who knows me, this is going to sound cliche, I would go celestial. I want to have that connection to the deities, to the heavenly realms.
And you get the 6-pack abs.
You get the 6-pack abs. You get the glorious wings, usually.
Yeah, you get a big.
You often get a very cool.
horn.
Yeah, you usually get a cool mount. I mean, I've already got the hard horn. That's fine.
All right.
Celestial or dragon, I agree on that.
Yeah?
Yeah. Something with immense amount of power with very few things it has to bow its head to.
Yeah.
Or just a pure divinity.
There you go. Just go right for the top.
If I'm going to be honest, I don't want to say celestial because you guys said it. So the answer is generic fiend.
Yeah.
My reason for
that was the other end.
Yeah, my reason for this is not demon or devil. I don't have interest in the blood war. I don't want to do that. But I do like Rakshasas and night hags and that because they're diabolical, they're evil, that they're fun. But when they die, they just respawn and come back.
Yeah, you get to do
and that's
all
what I'm
again.
looking for, right? And Celestials do that too.
Absolutely.
So just so all three of us aren't saying the same thing.
Some form of immortality,
Yeah.
effectively.
Although I will say the chances are very good that we are all actually already constructs because we are brains in jars.
Oh, perfect.
Or technically undead, I guess, by D&D standards. But like, at some point, we'll all have enough pacemakers and stints and whatnot that we will be constructs. So that's the real answer.
Yeah, at the end of the day. We'll all just be warforged by the end of it. All right, next question on the list. Again from Superfluous Dearth. What's your favorite monster that you have not yet used? Homebrew's acceptable. James.
I don't DM, so all of them.
You haven't used any of them.
Is there any monster that stands out to you like, hey, that'd be fucking cool to play?
Off the top of my head, really, I can't think of any, but there's been many I've encountered that would be... I mean, even like the different types of beholder. You only see the death tyrant and the main type of beholder, but there's, especially with homebrew, there's terrifying entities.
Yeah.
I think the one that I'm really, really, really eager to play is the Elder Brain Dragon, whatever that one's called.
The new one.
Yeah, that one looks absolutely fucking terrifying, and I'm looking for an excuse, a story hook to bring that into the game.
Yeah, you don't just drop that out of nowhere.
No. That's one that I'm going to probably try to work pretty hard at really working my way into. Probably level 17 play.
Oh, yeah, high level play for sure. For me, it's probably going to be a Lich. I have yet to actually drop a Lich on a table at my players because I want to watch them squirm.
I currently have 3 Liches walking around in my campaign right now, and the players know they're there, and they're just super not dealing with it because they're level 5.
Yeah.
Right? But, like, they know that shit's coming.
Good idea.
Yeah.
All right, James. Number 7.
Tarzan of the Desert asks, as a player, how do you decide your next character? Do you come up with your character concept and find the mechanics to fit the build a character sheet, and then backfill the story? Or are you more nonchalant about it? Brad?
For me, I am usually going to take a mechanical concept first. I am a mechanical first. Not in a power gamer way, but I want to know what I'm building, and that helps me fill out the story of who the character is. I would rather come up with, here's kind of what they do, or here's kind of how they exist in a mechanical sense, and then I flavor around that. That's usually the order that I go in.
I never get to be a player, but I will say this. I've got 2 thoughts on this. One, Dave has a really interesting method of doing it because he doesn't care. He's played so many characters in so many campaigns that have done 6 episodes or 6 sessions and they're done, right? So he has done character creation so often at all levels of play that he just really doesn't give a shit anymore. And it's challenging for me as a DM to get him to give a shit. So one of the things that I'm working on with him is having a reason for picking your shit, because he literally rolls out of the Xanathar's stuff when he... all those tables, the random tables to put that together a character. And it's been interesting. He's playing a fairy scout right now. And he's like, I can get behind the flying mechanic. I can get behind the roguey shit from a distance. He's really enjoying that side of it. But we're also now, because he picked a fairy, the Fae have to be a factor here, right?
Of course. Yep.
But all of the Fae are happy-go-lucky. In my world now, they all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And Dave is playing a scout that is a protector of nature. And so there's this disconnect, right? They're not the same thing. And that is giving him some meaning to it. So he started off very much with the mechanic only and is learning it as he goes. And that's really interesting to watch because everybody else at my table builds the idea first. My big thing is I want to build a character that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
When I did the L5R thing with Megan, I played an elderly man because I don't get to see that often. My next character, I don't think any of them will listen to this. Because I will say this. My next character, he's already built up to level 3 right now. And he is going to be a 6-year-old wild magic sorcerer.
Excellent.
Who cannot find his parents and latches onto the party because they look like stuffed animals to him and dolls. Because everybody plays anthropomorphs now, right? So so that's going to be the thing. And he's going to wander around. He doesn't cast spells with a verbal component because he wants to. He cries out, "No!" And then a spell goes off, right? Like, perfect. So it's very, very wild. I'm waiting to play this character because it's going to be ridiculous.
That's awesome. Before you jump in, I just want to say that part of the reason that I build my characters that way is because, like Dave, I'm currently my first campaign that's ever lasted more than 4 or 5 levels.
Oh, nice.
Right? So I am currently, always cursed with the fact that...
Stop playing in Dan's campaign.
Well, that's part of the problem. Yeah. No one else wants to DM for me. I got to DM all the other ones.
Fair enough. I get that. Okay, James, how do you do it?
For me, I haven't started a campaign with a party in 5 or 6 games I've played. I've always been brought in late, so I'm often filling a role. So I build my character to fill that role, and then I create a character's personality behind that later. As an example, I'm playing Tomb of the Mad Mage with Dave's DMing it, and they needed someone who was able to sneak into places and play the roguey role. So I built a Tabaxi rogue and left it at that.
The roguey role is a great name for a D&D podcast, by the way. It's the roguey role.
And I decided to treat my character as, you know how everyone has the friend with the pet cat that latches onto that one person?
Yeah.
That's my character. I've latched onto our barbarian. That is my person.
And that's the right person to latch onto.
I care about that person. The others, not so much. If they die, I'll try to help
like
them.
a cat.
Hold on.
Like
Who's
cat.
playing the barbarian?
Anthony.
Oh, fuck. That's goddamn.
And the best part is I was brought in to stop Anthony from barging into doors. Well, now I just encourage him to. I'm like, hey, there's a door over here. You want to kick it?
Oh, now I want to play... now I want to play Tabaxi that's like... what's his name from Red Dwarf? The cat.
Oh, fuck. What is his name? That's going to drive me nuts.
It's going to drive me nuts, too. But that's my next character. I've just designed it right here, right now. So that's how I design a character. Mostly off of jokes.
God damn, that is frustrating. What's your character's name?
My current character's name?
Yeah.
Thundar.
He's the
Storm Sorcerer.
I hate it.
Thundar.
Yeah, I really hate it.
Right.
Yeah. So does Dan, which is actually really the reason that I chose it.
I make people go after you, like, constantly.
Oh, Dan does.
Good.
So Dave has a thing. Okay, when he did the Call of Cthulhu actual play, he made Gunther the Hunter. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, Dave does that a lot.
Yeah, but his character's name was Gun for short. Every time that Dan DMs a one-shot or anything, Dave has worked in he uses different languages so Dan doesn't catch it. His character's name is always Gun.
Excellent.
Every fucking time. And I caught him doing this, and I said, if you do this in my campaign, I will murder you and you will just have to make a new one. We will run out of words for gun. We will run out of languages before I run out of ways to kill you. So he doesn't do that. But
oh, see, as a player, I would have taken that as a challenge.
yeah, you too would have. Yep. Tarzan of the Desert. We have a lot from Tarzan of the Desert. He's one of the patrons, and he just has so many good questions. So we're gonna stick with him for a few here. Given the noted accolades the podcast has for Call of Cthulhu, how likely are you to DM or play in an Eldritch Horror campaign reskinned with 5e basic rules? Brennan Lee Mulligan and Dimension 20 has done great work in bringing D&D to different settings. Is this, or would this, be on any of your radars? James?
Yes, because I can fight back. Like, that's one of my biggest things with Call of Cthulhu is you sneeze too hard, you're dead.
Yeah.
And even when you decide to defend yourself against just a dude, you can't hit him with a gun from 6 inches away. It stresses me out. I don't like playing it. I like being able to fight back. I would play a 5e version, though. Because it's not the Eldritch Horror that bothers me. It's the lack of self-preservation.
See, I absolutely fucking love the Call of Cthulhu rule set.
Yeah.
For the reason you hate it, I love it.
I know.
Yeah, and so I do love how dangerous it is. And I will say this, I would be more willing to adapt the Call of Cthulhu rule set, 7th edition rule set, to a fantasy or another genre than I would be to use 5th ed rules in another genre. I like 5th ed rules well enough, but they're so broad and generic that I feel like yes, you can do anything and it'll work. Why would you when there are other systems out there? I have been exploring this. I've been exploring Spire recently, which is really cool. That's a like drow only, and you're trapped in a tower. The whole thing is you're in like this infinite tower. I looked into Mork Borg when Jeff was doing that.
Yeah, Jeff was really into that for a bit.
Yeah, and there was Call of Cthulhu was big, Legend of the Five Rings, and like there's so many other cool systems out there that I want to dig into. But I'm telling you, the next thing that I do, and it probably won't be related to the podcast at all. The next thing I do when we're done this current Call of Cthulhu campaign is I would like to do a modern day survival horror zombie apocalypse with the Call of Cthulhu rules, where you're actually having to scrounge for materials and you are trying to build your base up, and can you trust the other survivors? With those deadly ass rules, I think it'd feel like really intense. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah,
I know most of the podcast people would kill each other in the first 5
pretty
minutes of
quick,
play,
yeah.
And it'd be a boring afternoon for one person.
Yeah, I like the Call of Cthulhu rules for the Call of Cthulhu setting. They are well suited. They fit, right? Dealing with sanity. When I'm playing 5th edition, I don't want that. If I'm playing 5e, it's because I want something that's a little more open-ended, a little more fun.
See, I played with the sanity score in the last campaign, and it was rough.
Yeah.
My players were not wild about it when it happened, because there are madnesses and shit that you can get out of the books, and they were gung-ho about it at first, and then it just became so fucking crippling.
And if that's what you want, why aren't you just playing in another system?
Yeah, which is why we're not playing it in this campaign, right? Like, we saw it through, and then I just kind of tried to stop using it. And I let it slide a lot of time. It's exactly as you said, James. You don't win, right? When you can lose your sanity and then be relegated to NPC status, that it's so quick. It's like stat damage, right? Like
it's fun when you know you're doing it, and that's why you're doing it.
Yeah.
But in the 5th edition rule set, it doesn't line up for me. All right, next question. Tarzan of the Desert again. Have you ever had a character at your table, either as a DM or as a player yourself, play as a handicap-capable character? Also, have you ever played with or as the opposite gender at your table? Adam?
I have definitely played female characters before. I think that most guys have at least dabbled with it at some point in their career, just because we can only have strapping muscles or sneaky sneak so often for like we got to build something we're not used to.
You want to try something different,
right? And it's just I find that the guys that have made more than one character. Look, I DM. I play female every single session.
Every session.
But it is different, and I recently stopped doing it because I play with girls at the table. Half of my party is girls, right? And I'm like, am I doing this justice, or am I playing a stereotype? Is this okay? And the answer is no. When it comes to handy-capable characters, no, then don't, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm a big supporter of what Doulos12 is doing. You can go check out our subreddit for it, because he's got the whole... I should look up the name. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, please do.
He's got he's finished a Kickstarter now. He made a book based entirely around characters with disabilities and how to include that in D&D. And so he wrote this book, very highly regarded.
Very good book.
Yeah, it's very, very solid. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of it. But we shot Megan's leg off, and she attached a prosthetic to it. Dan was a gnome tinkerer, and so he made that for her. And like that was fine. It came up very, very, very rarely. No. I have played pirate NPCs that have the hook hand, right? But like, that's a stereotype. That's a trope. It's not a
You're not playing off of the ability or disability. You're just it's just a flavor thing.
Yeah, it's a flavor thing. I would absolutely never glorify that in any way or use it as a crutch on anything. Pardon the pun.
Unintentional pun.
But like, I wouldn't be a normally abled person playing an autistic character and feel good about that.
Yeah. That's treading dangerous waters.
And I'm all for playing, like, if you are in a wheelchair and you want to be a hero in a wheelchair, absolutely go nuts. Alanic Ray is the smartest detective in all of the Shadowfell, and we get his character, and he's in a wheelchair. He's an elf in a wheelchair. And he's a great player, and I actually have him in my game as an NPC because I'm all about, like, exposing this kind of thing in D&D, but I wouldn't have that be the basis of my character for a gimmick, right?
No.
So I feel like it can get real cheap, and I can see pretty quickly how a group of 15-year-olds learning the game would start making cripple jokes and shit, right? Like, and that's not necessary.
You got to play it in the appropriate environment.
Yeah. So
I have a few thoughts on this, but before I do, you go ahead, James.
Very similar. That it's a very slippery slope that you're playing with that, because someone could take offense without you realizing. It's the same with playing female characters.
Yeah.
I actually have never personally played one for the same reasons Adam suggested. But I don't feel I'd be doing it justice. I almost always have a woman player at my tables that I'm playing at, and why would I do that when it's unnecessary?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not adding to the character by making them female, by making them disabled, by making them black, brown, white, or whatever. So then it's not a necessary fact of the character.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this. I've got a couple people. We call it on the rainbow. They're queer players at my table, and so I've started including non-binary characters. Every kobold is a they.
Yep.
Because they can swap their...
They can.
Their
That's just part of the character.
Yeah, and so I've really been playing with the idea of... I've got a couple of high-powered gay wizards that are some of the best NPC. My players love them. I would never play a character that would be like, oh, and I'm a trans character. Like, why the fuck would I bring that into it?
Yeah.
That just feels disrespectful. But as a dungeon master, that's inclusion.
You want to put that into your games.
Yeah, I'm bringing that because it's like that's the fucking world. It's 2023. Look outside. Here we are.
It's
right?
very two different sides between a dungeon master and player.
Yes, it is.
Dungeon master, it's inclusion for the party, for the world outside of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But for a player, it can be taken as a trope or as just straight offensive.
Yeah. I wonder what year it's going to be when they stop having small characters because of dwarfism.
I think that's
I don't
a
think
little
that will
different.
change because those characters are, even in other fantasy, they're diminutive of stature.
It's tied to a species or a race, and like
after
their
they
race is different than our race.
after they've walked back drow and orcs,
Yes.
though. I could see that as wizards overreacting. I don't think it's necessary.
No.
But I could see wizards overreacting.
I don't think so, personally.
I hope they don't. I like
most, I think they would change it from small to diminutive. Meaning the same thing, but no longer associated with dwarfism and other such conditions that people would be bothered
Except
by.
you literally have dwarves. What are you going to do with dwarves?
Exactly. So, like, I don't think
you gonna eliminate them?
change.
Well, and it's also funny you said that because diminutive was actually the step below tiny in previous
Yeah, it was.
editions. So it's like flies and gnats.
Yeah.
I remember seeing characters built on that. Oh, fuck, that was annoying.
It's annoying. All right, so let's jump into this. I have a player at my table right now who specifically approached me with a request to play a character in a wheelchair because his brother has spina bifida, and it's something that he has lived with his entire life, and something that he associates heavily with, and he wants to bring that to the table. And so I've worked hard with him to... He's currently playing an able-bodied character, and we're going to work into a way to do it. We want to do it in a way that's not offensive, in a way that's kind, but in a way that allows him to experience something that exists in his own personal life and his own experience.
But that
and
feels
drawing
like
off of it.
Like it's honoring, and it's
It's
not a gimmick.
Correct.
It's not
it is not. And so there are right ways to do it, right? Even as an able-bodied person, there's a right way to do it, right? Where in this case, he's honoring his brother and something that is in his life.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't play it off as a joke. It's not as... It is a sensitive topic.
Absolutely.
So another
Speaking of sensitive topics.
Yeah. Another one from Tarzan of the Desert. What is an important decision in your life that you've made that still affects you today?
Wow, we're getting deep.
Oh, shit.
Adam?
Oh, fuck right off.
Oh, thank God.
Well, I started a podcast. An important decision in my life. So one of the most out of the blue, ridiculous decisions. You guys didn't know me when I did this, but I was living downtown. I was working in a corporate setting. I bought myself a brand new sports car. I was wearing a tie to work. I was going out to. I was actually at Coffee with Terry, and I was talking to him about this. I didn't hang out with people after work. I networked after work. Mm-hmm. I really did do the yuppie thing for a number of years, living downtown. And there was like on a Saturday night, you go to a bar or a club and you go do the social scene. But I was one of those assholes that was like, I could wear a hoodie to work because I was in the tech sector, and then I'd put on a tie to go out at night. And like in my mid-20s, and I was like that. And then all of a sudden one day, I was I decided to reach out to a writing forum because I thought that I was God's gift to writing. I ended up talking to a girl there, and within about 5 months, I was flying across the continent to meet her and her parents. It was so out of the fucking common like habits of what I would have done. And I dropped a lot of money on it too, almost on a whim. And I told my parents, and they're like, fuck off, no you didn't. Right? Like, you didn't buy this. Who is this? What is going on? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's Mieka. And
now she's sitting in the other room.
Yeah, we're engaged, and we're planning a fucking wedding. And she is the best part of my life. I don't know why I took that leap, but I did. She actually said, I'll come up and see you. And I'm like, don't do that. If we want this to be serious, I need to meet your parents first. Don't fly to another country. You've never been on a plane before. Don't fly to another country. I could be a serial killer. You don't know. I live in Coquitlam. There could be a pig farm, right?
Good.
So let me go down. Let's do this the appropriate way. And so I made that decision. One of the strangest decisions I've ever made, and one of the best ones, and it's worked out in my favor.
Clearly,
yeah. And so she's an idiot.
Yeah,
for putting up with me. Yeah, but
she did say yes to getting married to you, so that was a given.
Yeah. I mean, she did manage to get up to Vancouver out of it. That's the one plus. Maybe that's the reason.
Yeah,
we'll find out in a couple years. I mean, there's a lot of big decisions, but I think, like you, Adam, it's got to be relationships are often the big ones in our lives, right? They tend to form us and shape us into the people that we are, for better or for worse, right?
Yeah.
Good relationships, bad, broken relationships. In my case, it was just deciding to go to a Halloween party one night on a whim. At a friend's place, one that I did not want to go to. I had just lost a good job. I had moved back into my parents' house. I was not feeling good about things. I was like, I just need to get out and get to a party. Mm-hmm. And just on a whim, my wife did the same thing. She had just lost her grandpa, but a friend of hers asked her to come out. And between the two of us, both happened to make that decision.
You almost said mistake.
Yeah.
We both of us made that mistake.
That's right. No, but that choice, definitely not a mistake. There's no doubt about that. Best decision I ever made.
It's funny how that works. Like, and how my life has drastically changed as a result. I mean, clearly yours.
Everything else. Yeah, mine as well.
Yeah, you're married and have kids and stuff. Everything for me changed because suddenly I wasn't going out in the evenings because I'm in a long-distance relationship. I got to stay home. When you're in a long-distance relationship, you don't get to do anything else but talk on the phone.
Yeah.
You can't watch TV and talk on the phone. You can maybe cook, but I can't play D&D and talk on the phone. No. There's so much shit I couldn't do, right? So I had to devote my life to this, and it calmed me right the fuck down. And now I am in a radically different job. I'm running this podcast. I wasn't playing D&D back then.
Yeah.
But I started thinking about it more and more because I had the downtime. I wasn't hustling anymore, right? So,
yeah.
For me, a decision that changed my life and still is affecting me, I don't know, about 7 years ago, me and my best friend had a massive blow-up fight. We were both being pissy bitches. We both knew the other one was being a pissy bitch, and neither of us were willing to admit it.
Yep.
So we were living together at the time, decided to leave, and I needed to figure out what to do. I was back in Calgary at the time, was watching a movie, and whatever on the movie pissed me off at how poorly it was done. And I decided I could do that better. And I was in the middle of trying to figure out, am I going to move somewhere in Calgary? Am I going to go back to school? What the hell am I doing? And then I found I could go become a VFX artist in Vancouver. My parents were living out here, so I said, I can do it better than the guy did it in the movie, and have since been making cartoons since.
And now you're on IMDb. You're famous.
Oh, yeah.
We're all going to be on IMDb because somebody put the fucking podcast up there, and we're going to find out.
And it wasn't one of us. No, that's the wildest part.
It's not even one of the Patreon. Like, everyone was confused when I found us on page 4. Like, I'm scrolling. It's a mimic. Just Googling yourself at lunch one day. Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck? We have an IMDb page, and I'm baffled. We're going to get to the bottom of this. It's someone in the UK.
Oh, really? You found that?
I think so.
Is it based on spelling, or?
No, it's based on the release date of the episode. Says in brackets UK behind it. So I'm like, is that
interesting.
The thing? So anyway,
your question.
My question: Tarzan of the Desert. Again, I love Tarzan of the Desert because he's not swinging through trees. He's just kind of like walking.
Yeah, just walking
dude in a loincloth walking through the desert. What's your pooping schedule look like? Every other day, every day, twice a day, or just straight diarrhea all the time? James, take us away.
Twice a day, because I'm fucking healthy. You goddamn monsters if it's anything otherwise.
Yeah. Unless my food is bad, it's twice a day. Once as soon as I wake up, and
Yeah.
then once usually in the afternoon.
I'm lactose intolerant.
Yeah, that's another story.
I have a particular hatred for the pooping schedule.
Yep.
I watch my diet. You wouldn't know looking at me, but I watch my fucking diet pretty closely. I can have cheese on a pizza, but I can't have a glass of milk. God, that would kill me. I have to choose when I'm going to get a frappuccino.
Lactate, my man, lactate.
If only I could just get rid of the milk through my nipples, then that would
Not lactate, lactade.
Oh, lactate. No, so I have a personal hatred for going to the bathroom.
I should mention to all the parents out there, I also spend a good couple hours in the bathroom every day hiding from my children. Does that count? I'm not pooping, but I'm pretending I am, so I have an excuse to not be in the same room as my kids.
Because the poop has hit the fan.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, okay. Take us away from this question, please.
Yeah, let's move on. Another one from Tarzan of the Desert. With the rising popularity of D&D and more actors, athletes, celebrities coming out as D&D players, I like that that's the phrasing.
Yeah, we're coming out as
D&D players. Who is one celebrity you would want to play with and or DM for? James.
Oh, that's a hard one. I like.
It doesn't even have to be somebody who
Freeman.
does play. Morgan Freeman. Oh, there you
Fuck.
go. Yeah.
No,
I like to play an evil campaign with Morgan Freeman.
I want him to DM it.
Yeah.
My God, that would be the best
I don't
thing.
want him to DM it. I want him to play with me, and I want it to be an evil campaign.
If I'm going to play in an evil
because
campaign,
I can't wait for him and I to be torching a village together.
if I'm going to play in an evil campaign, it has to be with Sean Connery, because he is going to like that man.
Yeah.
Like, he is a straight up piece of shit in real life. So he's going to think it's a good campaign.
Yeah. You don't have to tell him it's an evil campaign.
I don't know, just smack the bitch. Like, oh God, what's your alignment?
Gilbert Gottfried.
Oh
God, I'd kill
Fuck.
myself.
I actually tried with this character.
To kill yourself?
This Thundar character, this pirate, hobgoblin pirate. I tried to do a Gilbert Gottfried accent for this character. Unfortunately, I just couldn't keep it going. It was painful.
That's painful. Even to think
No,
about.
you want to know who my
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get some real answers.
All right, so my real answer would be I have two. Jack Black would be a fucking
So good.
such a good time at the table.
Absolutely.
Although I'd be exhausted after 2 hours.
Yeah.
The other one, I think, because he's weird and quirky as fuck, is Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, that would.
I think that would be
absolutely wild.
Did you guys see the Weird Al
Yes,
bio? Fuck, that was
So
so
good.
Yeah.
so good. All right, whose question is this one? James, I think it's you.
I believe the last question from Tarzan of the Desert. Would It's a Mimic ever consider doing a collaboration with another D&D podcast? And if so, which one? Adam.
Yeah, you gotta touch on this because it's come up.
It has come up a couple of times. I have not reached out or pulled the trigger on it yet. Technically, we collaborate. Peps is her own fucking celebrity in her own right, and so
She does her own thing.
and she does like 9 other things,
Yeah.
right? So we just are lucky enough to have Peps on this show. But we collaborated with Brian, the Bearded Nerd, for a couple episodes. And he's got a pretty successful D&D podcast. People should go check that out, The Bearded Nerd. I think it's Bearded Nerd Media. I think it's what it is right now. I would love to get involved with other people who are, what's the word I'm looking for? There are a lot of podcasts out there that are top 10 lists.
Yeah.
There are a lot of podcasts out there that teach you how to build a character. And there are a lot of podcasts out there that give you power gaming tips. Not interested in any of those people. I want people that are going to come with inspiration and be able to talk like individuals and not smash the like button. Right? I don't fucking need that shit in my life, right? And it's probably the reason why we're not bigger is because I won't play those games, but
That's why the people who appreciate this podcast appreciate this podcast.
all fucking 12 of us, yeah.
But we're all here.
Yeah, and we're all on it.
Yeah.
The only people that truly listens is my mom. The Patreon
I don't even
Discord-
listen anymore. I'm just on them.
The Patreon Discord is Brad's kids and
That's
my mom
right.
just smashing the keyboard.
Yeah. For me, there's one group of people who I'd love to play with more than anybody else, and that is the McElroy brothers, who run the Adventure Zone. They seriously just take it. They have fun with it. It's comedy first and play second. You can say the same for the Dungeons and Daddies guys. Also the same, just kind of, let's just get together, have a good time.
Yeah.
Those are kind of, like, just for a short stint. I wouldn't want to have a permanent thing going, but both of those would be fun to have a crossover with.
I personally don't follow any other D&D podcasts and stuff like that, so I really don't have an answer.
If, I feel like I would like to be able to have them come on and do our style of episodes, but are we going to go guest star on one of their shows?
Not a chance.
Probably not. Like,
No.
A lot of us are introverts on this podcast. There's not many people who are like, yeah, I'll do that. As a matter of fact, we've had a couple of invites on the Patreon recently. You should come guest star on our thing. And like, I've put it out to the group, like, hey, who wants to do this? And it's fucking crickets, right? Like,
for me, it's time. I just can't devote to another thing either.
Oh, fuck. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
So, who's got the time? Again, talking to Terry earlier today, and his complaint is, I had free time before COVID, and then we all took a break for a few months, and then suddenly free time evaporated.
Yeah.
And it happened to everybody.
Work has absorbed it. Life has absorbed it. Everyone has suddenly developed anxiety as well, which isn't helping.
Fucking losers, catch up.
I know. Most people were behind. Now people are starting to get on the trend. That's right.
Since it was before it was cool.
My only anxiety, the only anxiety that I get is when I'm not bothering other people with their anxiety. I feel like I'm just not doing enough.
Yeah, you're slacking is what it is.
Yeah, Dan quit the podcast. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm just my evil outbursts have nowhere to
He's
go.
coming back for a few episodes, isn't he?
Yeah,
Spoiler.
Yeah, Dan has found a little bit of free time, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go for coffee?" Like, bitch, eat a mic. So, whose turn is it?
It's yours.
It's me.
Number 14.
Terror Pickle,
Which is a great name, by the way.
That is a good name. I would like to know the backstory of that, because at some point he would have just been a normal cucumber and then Pickle. Like, there's some trauma.
Which one came first, the pickle or the terror?
Unless he didn't get sentience till after he became a pickle.
Or
just a normal cucumber,
just
need for a name because he can't type.
Just a cucumber.
But becomes a pickle,
something happens.
Receives terror, gains enlightenment, and now can type.
If you could change one thing about either your DMing or your playing style, what would it be and why? Brad.
DMing style. I would love to be more prepared. I have learned from the school of Dan.
That's not a school. That is just loose.
It's an online class.
That is spaghetti on the floor.
There's a loose leaf at the train
Yeah,
station.
yeah, really. But no, I really wish, for the sake of my players, that I could be more prepared. I mean, between the podcast, kids, and family, and
I'm assuming your prep is just reading the tea leaves in the bottom of the cup and going with it from there.
You know what? Actually, my prep is stealing out of whatever module I decide to take for this arc.
Fair enough.
Right? I would love to sit down and homebrew.
How many books do you have? I know you do D&D Beyond.
I have almost all of them.
Yeah?
Anything with campaign arcs or, session arcs, I've got it. It's just some of the other, obscure stuff I don't.
Fizzbands or...
Fizzbands I've got, oh yeah.
I'm curious to know, let me know what you don't have, because...
I've got basically everything. I was actually just going through because I was loading my iPad.
Acquisitions Incorporated? That's what
I have that. That's so good. The episode we recorded on that is still one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's so fucking good. James, what's one thing you would change?
Power gaming. I know
More or
I'm a
less.
power gamer. Less. I know I'm a power gamer. It's just who I am as a person. I'm like, even when I don't try to build a character to power game, it just ends up that way.
Does it just feel wrong to be suboptimal? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that you're trying to be better. It's just, why would you not be the best?
Well, even logically in that world, if you become a sorcerer and gain magic based on some ancestry, why would you not put all your effort into honing those skills? It's like being a fighter, but never practicing your sword. That makes no sense to me.
I'm going to give you a wild magic sorcerer where you just don't give a shit.
Sometimes you just need to be a purple dragon knight.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
No, you
never
don't.
need to be.
There's no excuse.
The one thing that I would change about me as a player is I would play. The one thing I would change about me as a DM is I would stop and breathe the description a little more. I find that when I look into the modules and I see whatever the adventure path is, you get the block, the blurb you're supposed to read out to the players. I need to script that. It's always a description when they walk into the place at the very beginning. I need to script that for myself. That's the one thing in prep I don't do. I used to draw maps and stuff. Now I do it on the fly with dry erase markers and things. So the details are getting lost. And I find my players, not often, but occasionally, they will ask for clarity about what the space looks like and how it feels. And I find myself missing the humidity of the room, or if the ship feels off kilter, or like the little things that I take for granted because it's ambiance.
And it's already in your brain, right?
Yeah.
You're picturing this setting, but you got to remind the players what's there.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that I fucking super prep.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I need to spend about 20 more minutes before every session just on the introduction of the settings.
Yeah. Scene setting.
I think that's me next.
No, that was you.
That.
I've got the next one. This one, speaking of crossovers, the Shouting Into the Void podcast, we've got a question from them. Can a 5th edition Drow fighter cast Fairy Fire even though they have no spell slots?
It's one of those ones that you get, like, racially, right? Like,
yes.
Then fucking yes.
So yes, you just can. That's just in the rules.
Yeah, you don't need...
It's like anyone else getting a racial spell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could play an elven barbarian with no spell casting, but you can still cast your elven spells. It's
that's why they say you can use it a certain number of times per short rest, whether it's proficiency bonus or whatever.
Yeah,
it is, right?
And the saving throw, if there is one, is whatever based on a certain stat.
Yeah. This is outside of your...
That's right.
Spell casting.
So absolutely 100%.
Generic racial genetic spells.
All right, James.
This is the worst name ever. It's Diggly Blue Moonya. And she has been asking questions on every single one for like years. And every time it comes up, everyone's like, what the fuck is this name?
It's a great name. It's just impossible to say.
Yeah, Diggly Blue Moonya.
Well, Diggly Blue Moonya asks...
It sounds so stupid when people say
it. On an episode a long time ago, someone said that they eat Dragonheart to buff max hit points for characters. I added that to my game, and also the idea that you can scry on kobolds by using a dragon eyeball, like a crystal ball. What would you have? What would you have dragon horns, dragon scales, and dragon tongue, and other things do in your game that would be more interesting?
Ooh, who are you going to throw that at?
Brad.
I was going to say, I know this is from your campaign.
Yeah, that was me that mentioned this.
Yeah, and Megan's brought it up a couple times too, because this is something that's very important to her. I mean, scales, the obvious one is scale mail, or given the size, depending on the size of the dragon, right? An ancient dragon, you're not getting armor out of it, you're getting a massive ass shield out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Tower shield. But young dragon, hatchling, something like that, yeah, you can make armor out of that. Horns, I liked the thought of using those either, one, hollowing them out, and letting the horn be a call that will summon some sort of dragonkin. Yeah. I don't care what it is, kobolds, whatever you want to make it. Even lizard folk, I would say, go for it. And then a lot of it I would also use as, like, potions and right? Like, your players should be selling this to master potion makers or people who know how to use this stuff to gain some sort of magical effect. Your players shouldn't know this unless they've specifically made it their background.
What about tongues?
Tongues, I would allow it. Two things I would do with it. One, I would use it for cooking, just straight up. And it'll give them some sort of buff, charisma stat buff. Two, I would allow... the consumption of it to allow a player to simply speak Draconic for a certain amount of time. Just a short period of time.
I would just fucking give it to them. Languages are cheap, and with that, I just give it to them. Eat a dragon tongue. By the time that you have killed a dragon...
That's true. Yeah, just give them Draconic. Yeah, that's fair.
Because wormlings can speak Draconic right off the fucking bat, right? So it's not a learned skill. It's like they just magically do it. So as far as scales go... A guitar pick for a bard.
Perfect, yeah.
Right, and it's going to give some sort of charisma or inspiration boost or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe if you use this, you get the double proficiency with performance checks, right?
Yep.
So I like the idea of the horn, and I would do horn and bones the same way. I'd grind it up to make bread and consume it that way. And I would give you advantage on con saves. Or, depending on the kind of dragon that it is, you get resistance against that one elemental type once per long rest. Or something like that.
Now I like the idea of a bone broth soup.
Yeah, but of like dragon
bone broth.
Like blue dragon bone, so you drink that.
It keeps you warm.
Yeah, or it's like... You're able to spark fires. You don't need a tinderbox anymore. Shit like that.
So I was thinking white dragon. Like a white dragon. Something cold, right? Should give you like the ability to stay warm in a cold environment.
For me, I'd have the caveat of dragons being rare and a one alchemist to be able to do the thing, but I would make sure like the heart buffs your constitution stat. The horn will buff your wisdom, the tongue will buff your charisma, but dragons are extremely rare. So there's like one of each type that you can go get. if you manage to get the parts, if you manage to find the right guy, which I'll make sure it's not easy for the party to find. Like that alchemist we mentioned in session 1 at the beginner town. If they don't remember that piece of information, they will never receive these buffs. But if they happen to, let them all bump their charisma or their max stat above 20. Why not? You fought an elder dragon. You found the one dude who knows this obscure magic.
What would you do, let's say, right, Terry's running a Tyranny of Dragons campaign. Say you're running a dragon campaign. Players manage to gather something from every single chromatic. What would you do with something like that? Mix and match. Power Ranger style.
You would be able to cast Hypnotic Pattern once per long rest. Or you would have, maybe it would just be something fucking mundane, like your cloak glimmers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's still magical, but it's
a mundane effect. Those are my favorite magical items, to be honest.
Yeah.
The party is able to summon a chromatic whelp for the duration of the combat once per week or whatever.
And by whelp, you mean minion. You don't mean like how they say it in Ohio. Whelp! Looks like I'm trying to get by.
A young dragon that, not that the party knows this, it's the same young dragon, though it will change from a red to a blue to a white, whatever the case may be, it's the same consciousness. So if the party lives for a couple hundred years, well, now they have an elder dragon to summon upon.
The question, too, is what do you do with the crystals of a gem dragon if you get the gems off of their bodies? That, like, there's more than...
jewelry is the answer, but then what does the jewelry do?
Well, they all have a specific kind of magical bend to them, so it would be whatever that.
Just take it right from the stat.
Yeah. And the same thing with like Moonstone, or if you eat the fungus off of a deep dragon, you get the dark vision, or
like you just get high, super high,
just super fucking high,
like licking a toad. I think it's you. I don't know.
Alexander Another Skip Davis asks, could contact poisons be applied to blunt weapons?
Why not?
Now, we did an episode on poison a while back, and if I remember correctly, there are different ways. You can inhale it, you can eat it, you can be injured, and it like it's coated on a blade, and then there's contact as well. And so if it's a contact poison, absolutely. This is power gaming nonsense, but this is also an experienced player going, so would this work in your game? And I'd be like, yeah, fine.
Yeah, it would.
You're not going to run into a whole lot of poisons. I'm not going to give you a whole bunch of ingredients and shit.
And it's not permanent. It's not a permanent boon to your weapon. It's going to fade. Contact poisons don't last forever.
It's going to last 1d10 rounds.
Yeah, exposed to air, this stuff's going to dissipate.
Yeah, so less than a minute, but you can get this shit done, right?
Absolutely.
I would also make it more difficult for that contact to initiate. Because you're fighting someone, usually, especially if you're using a blunt weapon, full armor.
Oh, yeah, if they're armored.
So they're head to toe in armor. Maybe their hands are exposed, neck and face are exposed.
So, like...
Unless you're hitting those locations or hitting them hard as fuck to bend that armor.
You know, that's exactly how I do it.
You should never be able to hit with it.
That's how I do it. It's AC of 14 to do damage.
Yeah.
If you roll an 18 or higher, you have hit them in a space. So your 15 hits, but it hits their armor.
Yeah.
Roll damage... Not poison.
Poison doesn't take effect.
Yeah. So that's how I do it.
Or roll another d20 to see if your poison slips past the armor or splashes in their face, whatever the case may
And
be.
you bet your ass I'm making you make some sort of dexterity save as you're applying this to not affect yourself.
I would almost...
I would ask how you're applying it. If you're saying you're wearing gloves, you get it. But if you're not, fuck you. Roll me a save, dumbass.
I put it in my mouth and spit it on my glove.
That's right.
Okay, roll me a save.
That's the barbarian.
Advantage because that's badass. You know what you're doing. I'll give you that one.
Thundar hurt.
So good. All right. Roll or Dice asks, you said in an episode that you hold funerals for player characters that die. What does that look like? I'm going to just send this right to you, Adam, because this is yours.
Yeah, I feel like we've actually discussed this somewhat recently, but let's go through it again in case people missed it. So the idea is that when a player character dies, it should be a momentous event. I don't like to kill... Some people just have really brutal worlds, and sometimes you can just die from a giant toad, right? But after level 3, I don't want that anymore. It needs to be a moment. It has to be epic. Even if they go down in a fight, I will then make it feel epic in that moment. There has to be a reason to this. There has to be a reason that the resurrection magic is not available or whatever. So when a player character is finally gone, what I do is I finish out the session, and then I tell the player of that character to go away and write a will and testament. And what that means is they get to look at their character sheet and all of the gear on it and say, who does this shit go to? And also, if you don't want it to go to anyone, say, I want to be buried with it. And then, like, if they get eaten by something and then the thing gets away, this isn't an option, but they drop to their backpack. We just make that choice.
Yeah.
So whatever's in the backpack can be, bequeathed.
Sure.
So, and then they show up at the next session, and they don't have to get really in depth with it, but they can if they want. And if they do, the goal is to try to make the other players cry. And it is Thundar. I always felt that you and I had a special connection because of that time. And then you mentioned something that happened in the past sessions, right? Yeah. And you brought me back to life, and I've been thinking about that. And so I want you to have my medical kit or whatever it is, right? So there has to be a personal connection to it just to make these things matter in the moment. And then when it's all said and done, we do funerary rites if we have a body. It's about a 50-50, honestly.
Yeah.
And when the funerary rites are done, we then either have to burn the body or salt the earth so that they don't come back undead.
Yep.
That's the big deal, right? So I've done that a couple of times. It's been heartbreaking every time. They didn't salt the ground when Terry's last character died, and he is a ghost that walks around in the campaign now.
Nice.
Serves him right.
All of the players were corrupted and were raised as undead at the end of the last campaign, so the big bad guys in this campaign. But the ones that just died from the false Hydra were either eaten and horribly decomposed, and it was brutal, or they were... they essentially opened extra-dimensional space inside an extra-dimensional space. And,
oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. So they blooped out Charlie's character. However, those ghosts, my world, the goddess of death, is not there. So the ghosts have nowhere to go, and there's nothing to do. So, like...
They just hang out?
Sometimes, yeah, and Dan's character can actually see Charlie's old character.
I remember this story.
Yeah,
We've had this off air.
Yeah, so it's been fun doing that because they didn't do the appropriate funerary rites. And Casey, Megan, and Dan should know better, but Mieka, Dave, and Charlie don't know yet. So this will have consequences.
Perfect.
Serves them right.
Yep.
Brought it upon themselves. I think that covers that.
So, Groundbreaking Top 33 asks...
I've got some questions about that username, but we'll get to it.
Yeah. Now that Dragonlance is in 5e, I have asked this... I'll ask one of my old questions again. Can you give your thoughts about Minotaurs of Kron versus the Minotaurs as a monster? I personally would love an episode on the topic, but a quick answer here would be nice.
Who are you throwing that to?
You, because I'm not particularly sure of the difference.
Okay, so Dragonlance takes place on the world of Kryn. There are a whole bunch of different kinds of creatures that live there, but we're also missing a bunch too. A lot of the standard D&D races are not there. You're not going to find Kenku or anything else. I think that in the book, in the Shadow of the Dragon Queen, it's like, yeah, just bring them in. It's super rare, but I'm like, they don't really belong here. Minotaurs are one of the races, if I remember correctly, they are evil, but they don't necessarily have to be because it's 5th edition. So
they can
choose your alignment. But it's the same thing as the Ravnica and Theros. They're medium-sized creatures. They have intelligence. They're not just charging at you in the labyrinth, right? And they're not large size and fucking scary as all hell. I like this. In my campaign, I have both. So I've got the monsters, and I've got the more civilized, smaller versions of them. And I think about it like this. The smaller ones needed to evolve to learn how to survive somehow.
Yeah.
They had to get smart and learn to use tools in order to not get slaughtered by the bigger ones. They're the same race that evolved down different paths, long time ago. And also, I could honestly just say, if I wanted to, what's the demon lord? The Baphomet. Yeah, so Baphomet just did experiments because he's an experimenter, right? Like, he did experiments on the medium-sized one and made fucking monsters. I can do that too. Right? I like Minotaurs. As a matter of fact, I just got a Hero Forge mini for the NPC Minotaur that is like guiding the party around right now. So I'm really, really excited about exploring that. He's a little bullheaded. They keep saying he's stubborn, but he's bullheaded. I did that on purpose. So, and he doesn't put up with their horse shit specifically. So,
other bullshit.
That sounds like bullshit.
Yeah. But I really like Minotaurs. I would play a Minotaur Barbarian.
Yeah.
I like them for flavor as a playable character. I also think that the Minotaur in the Labyrinth is scary and fun, and I love that charge ability. And like I would like a low level party to get hunted by a Minotaur.
Yeah. When Theros introduced their take on the Minotaur,
it was Ravnica.
Was it Ravnica?
Am I right on
I think
that?
they both did. Maybe they both did. I know Theros has a... Like, we'll look it up later. But
yeah.
Anyways, the player concept of a Minotaur is, like, just candy to me. It's one of those ones that is constantly on my to-play list, but just never the right setting.
I have more misgivings about the Centaur being medium-sized.
Yeah. The Centaurs should be large.
I don't know why. I just feel like
it's a four-legged creature. It's going to take up more than 5 feet of space. I'm sorry. It's going to take up more than square.
But for me, it makes a little bit more sense because they're going to be... It's what they can influence, right?
Sure.
So they're not going to be able to hit...
Well, they can kick behind them, but that's about it.
Sure, but like, I don't know. I just
if you spend any time around horses, they have more than a 5-foot reach. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Again, like James just said, like I understand that they're ponies.
Yeah, they're all ponies. That's what I've assumed.
But because of how long their body is, I assume, and it got shorter. I assume that all of the Ravnica centaurs and all of the Theros ones are like 4 feet tall, just to fit in the 5-foot square.
But where do they nurse from?
The boobs.
Yes.
Which boobs?
Which teats?
All of them.
Just milk everywhere.
Now the question is, do they have floppy baby necks when they're born, or
that is one of my favorite memes? Is the
floppy babies?
The floppy babies on top of a centaur body.
Yeah,
it's great.
We just did a commercial. I don't know if it's this week or last week. For a guy who does all of these free STL models for 3D printing, right? Yeah. So, and what he did was the Centaur, which is the bodies of the horses attached, but there's no human heads.
Yeah.
So like it's like upside down horse and then horse body, and he actually
that's good.
Like it's a meme online, but he went and he made one of the STL models.
And how do they wear pants?
It was MZ4250, I think, was his thing. Anyways, people
check the ad.
Yeah.
All right, you got our last question, Adam.
Groundbreaking Top 33 asks, I know that this podcast is 5e driven, but do any of you use anything from past editions as well? James?
I know Dave plays with stuff from 3rd edition from time to time.
Yeah.
He'll throw 3rd edition stuff at us.
Dan and I both do.
Yeah.
We use minions from 4th edition. Yeah. We use a lot of the weird, clunkier rules that if there's nothing for it in 5th, we'll lean on it for... Like auras and shit I use all the time. There's always auras going off.
I steal stuff from Pathfinder all the time when I need it. Pathfinder was my introduction to tabletop gaming.
Oh, yeah.
So I never played earlier editions. Pathfinder 1st edition was what I played for the first time with Dan. So occasionally I'll steal stuff from that. And occasionally I'll put stuff from that in 5th edition, not realizing it's not in 5th edition because it's so ingrained in my brain that it just feels like it belongs.
It took me a long time to, like, not confirm the crit.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I got from 3.5.
Absolutely.
I will say the other thing that I steal from 3.5 is the absence of a phrase. And that phrase is, they can repeat this save again at the beginning of their next turn.
Yeah.
Fuck that noise, no.
Yeah.
Some of the time, most of the time I let it slide, but every once in a while, if it is an archdevil, you don't get to repeat that save. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Make it the first time. Blow your inspiration. Use your bonus die. Like,
I guess that's something we all use too, right? We all use a lot of inspiration dice in our campaigns.
Yeah.
So that's a very different environment than people who don't use that homebrew rule.
Yeah, so my players can choose when to succeed on things.
Yeah.
A lot of them, it's not a perfect system,
nope.
But they can often choose when.
You have enough dice that if you save them up, you can just blow enough of them to...
It's a goddamn lie. I burned all my inspiration
sometimes
not to succeed.
Yes, sometimes it happens.
More than one occasion.
Yeah.
It was like
I rolled 7 ones.
Dice. Yeah, it was 7 or 8 dice. I rolled poorly and I blew everything I had. And
my favorite is when I try and use them on a persuasion roll on something that just straight up will not be persuaded.
Oh, I never have to worry about those. Those rolls I succeed on.
Hold on. They make you roll when there's 0 chance of success?
Yeah. That's Dan.
Jesus fuck. I'm going to call him when we're done this and scream at him. It says right in, I want to say the player's handbook, it might be the DMG. It says right in it that you roll to succeed. Like
yes, I know.
You can't do that. I'm not going to force you to build up the hope on it. That is shitty DMing.
Now, what about degrees of failure?
Degrees of failure? Sure. But then I tell them, I will tell my player, this is nearly freaking impossible. I don't think you can do it, but let's see how close you can get.
Yeah.
Roll your dice.
Something bad is going to happen here. Let's see how much of that you can mitigate.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah, and that's different, right?
Yeah.
But just like, oh, you're trying to persuade the king to let you all go, even though they just caught you gangbanging the queen.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is not going to happen.
But maybe the punishment will be lessened based on your charisma check.
No, you're fucked. The king is pissed.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can say that will make this better. You will only make it worse. Are you sure you want to roll? No? You're just going to hang your head in shame? Fine. Moving on then.
Yeah.
But I'll also break the fourth wall on that.
Yeah.
Because it's not...
Sometimes you have to tell your player these things, right? This is just not going to work the way you think it is.
When Dan was an inquisitive rogue, and he was level 20... He was, his passive perception was in the 20s.
Yeah.
Right? He was rolling almost 30 on some rolls that he had expertise in. And I'm like, yeah, you absolutely do not need to roll this. No. You are just going to do it because you're good at it. And if the players can just automatically do it if they're good enough, then they will automatically not do it if they're bad enough.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
So that's where I land.
You should just know that no matter you don't know how to do this, don't even bother rolling.
It's actually how I got around the "I want to seduce the dragon" joke at my table.
Absolutely.
No, you don't. This
cannot.
Is a fucking ancient dragon,
and you know better.
Yeah.
I know you as a player think it's funny, but your character knows that you're not going to get away with this.
Yeah, this is a meta bullshit thing you brought to my table.
Yeah,
and you're breaking the suspension of disbelief here.
I'm going to break it back and just make sure we establish ground rules.
Yeah. So, anyway, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Nothing interesting. He's
okay.
buzzing.
Mailbags are fun. I just like doing them. Send us your questions, please. We like doing these. Yeah, send us your questions.
It's a lot of fun. And there's one question, because we did 20. There's one question that didn't make it. Don't worry, it's on the next one. So, that's it for this Mailbag episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as dozens of other podcast apps. You can also email us at info@itsamimic.com or head over to www.itsamimic.com and support us by hitting the donate button or buying some merch, or you can join our Patreon. Thanks again for listening to the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're gonna get.
I can go home and play Diablo when it's all done.
There you go. Is it good?
Very. If you're not hardcore. Apparently the hardcore players are all complaining about it because there's not enough to do.
The last real video game that I sunk my teeth into and lost myself to was Diablo 2.
Yeah.
So I haven't even really played the third one, so
Third one was good but very different. This is much more like 2.
Yeah. I've been watching the trailers. I'm interested. I'm going to probably watch a playthrough just so that I don't become weirdly obsessed with leveling. But I'm curious to know what the story is.
Honestly, that's more of it. You can very easily pick the game up, play the story, and feel like you got your money's worth.
That's actually how I engage with every Mortal Kombat game that comes out. Because the stories are fucking wild and stupid.
Did you see the trailers for the new one?
Well, Jesus, no. Okay, all right, I know what I'm doing after the recording.